Last but certainly not least is a very good colleague of mine, Dr. Donald Matheson. Donald's the head of the Media and Communication Department at the University of Canterbury and co-director of the university's Arts Digital Lab. He's a very widely published and internationally recognised expert on journalism and forms of public communication, particularly issues of journalism and digital media. He's the editor of journal Ethical Space, and I think you're still president of the Australia and New Zealand Communication Association, is that correct?
No, but you can say anything you like.
Okay, okay, he can sing, he can dance, he can... but no, tremendous colleague, thank you very much for coming, Donald. Please give him a warm welcome.
Kia ora, Peter. Tēnā koutou katoa. Nice to see you all here. There's a really interesting and important conversation going on at the moment in the public domain around social media and the aftermath of the attacks as we've been talking about. And I think a group like this has a role to play in shaping some of that discussion, helping contribute to bringing academic scholarship, as Peter's able to do, and to an extent myself and Ursula and Tara and other members of Jeff there. But also drawing together some of the really high quality discussion that I've read on, ironically, social media feeds from others in public. And I'm going to try to say a few things that for me begin to pull some of that together, and I'd be interested in people's thoughts. But first I want to say three things. One is that we should not shoot the messenger. Facebook is not responsible for racism in society. It amplifies certain voices. There are other places on the internet that amplify quite disturbing voices. There's a whole lot of other issues, and while we're talking about the structure and the ownership and the practices of media, we've got to keep that in perspective, obviously. Secondly, kind of maybe building on earthquake stuff as well, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are many things that social media do in public communication that are very valuable. So, we bought a beach not so long ago, which probably wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been the organising power both of Give a Little, was it Give a Little? One of those pages anyway, and social media campaign that rose around it. Hyper-local journalism, the really micro-scale public communication, community communication that happens, often happens on Facebook groups set up by communities. There's tons of examples that we can give of forms of public communication or of community communication that are really rich in social media. The potential for collective action like the Me Too movement and so on. Again, I wouldn't praise the messenger. I'm not sure Facebook is entirely, to be praised for some of these initiatives. Not sure of Mark Zuckerberg's opinion on the Me Too, #MeToo. But yeah, I think those are really important points, and before we even begin to say, well, what are the questions of regulation or structure and so on. And the last point related to that is that I feel I have very few answers in my mind. We're looking at a media phenomenon, social media, that's very young. Don't know when you want to date, maybe back to blogging in 2001 or so. If you think of television 18 years into its history, the regulation that happened then is probably not a very good model for how we would want to regulate television now. There's, you have to have a long historical view of things, and the buddy thing keeps changing as well. So, for me, the key question is to think as, I'm not sure whose idea it was, Miles or Peter's, to say, social media as public media. That was this genius over here.
Yeah, okay.
To what extent can we imagine these as public media, and what is their potential at their best? And I would go back to some scholars of the right to communicate, who say, rather than a right to freedom of speech, which is often the shaping idea behind much lack of regulation, the free market approach, that we should think about a right to communicate being fostered by all our media channels. And that means that all of us should be encouraging and fostering others' right to be heard, and we have a responsibility to understand each other in our communities and our societies. And I think grabbing at sentences like that one works for me. If there's any kind of puzzled faces around, then you might need to find another version of that works for you. But what is it that we value in public communication? And then to ask, how do these platforms measure up? And my sense is that Facebook, with its ideal of a frictionless environment where things move past really quickly, where it's an environment that's safe for advertising.
Well, I think this opens up a
Yes.
range of interesting issues for
Yeah.
debate. So, well, first of all, can we thank our panel? I've been scribbling away, so I've learned a great deal from all of you. Thank you very much. So, can we give the panel a round of applause and then we'll open things up.